Hello and welcome to the Summit and Stitch podcast. My name is Brittany and I'm a knitter slash crocheter out of Colorado. And this podcast is just a place for me to share all the things that I am passionate about, including the fiber arts. So how I like to do these is I like to talk about any finished products and any whips that I have going on, and then any acquisitions, and then finally just a random place at the end to kind of talk about life and media and I don't know, anything going on. Maybe like an updates section at the end there. First thing is first, let's talk about finished products. So in the past week, almost 2 weeks since the last time I did an update, the first thing that I finished is the Age of Brass and Steam Kerchief. I finished this in the shawl size, and this was a stash buster for me, so I did not buy the recommended yarn for this pattern. I used things that I had available, and the goal of this pattern was to use up the 284 yards that I had left of the Hobby Lobby Yarn Bee Simply Flawless yarn in the color Mist, and I successfully did that. Now, to get gauged though, I had to use 5.5 millimeter needles, and that unfortunately caused me to have to use way more yarn than I thought. So I used all 284 yards of the Simply Flawless yarn, and then when I got to the end of the yarn that I had, I knew that I had to improvise. So the only thing that I had that I thought looked even somewhat decent with the Simply Flawless yarn was this hand-dyed skein that I had, and I dyed it on the Nomad Yarns Marshmallow Worsted. And this was a colorway that I just did myself, but because it had these like white slash gray areas in it and the colors were kind of like a muted cool palette to them, it actually ended up looking, I think, fairly well, and it actually looked intentional to a certain degree because of where I ran out of yarn. So where I ran out of yarn was pretty much right at the end, about 2 rows before doing the final border. And up close, you can definitely tell that it's not just the border that has the alternate color on it, but that it is the 2 rows above the border that have the alternate color on it, but you can't really tell, which is awesome. So the failed yarn chicken, in my opinion, ended up looking actually intentional. So it worked and I am happy about it. Now, as far as the pattern goes, the pattern is one, it's free. So I have way less complaints when it comes to free patterns because I didn't pay any money for them. Someone put all of this work and effort in to release a pattern that they made no money off of, and therefore I'm not here to complain on those patterns because I am personally not someone that would do that. If I put in all of the time and effort into a pattern, I would charge for it. The pattern has 2 sizes available. You can either do the, I think it was listed as the kerchief size or the shawl size, and I'm going to double check that. So you can either do a smaller version, which would be just a little like neck warmer shawl thing, or you can do a full shawl. What I will say about this pattern is I did the full shawl, and in my personal opinion, it's not written big enough to be a full shawl. Now, the pattern is written as a kerchief. It's not specifically written to be a shawl, and I don't know if that is why it is smaller. But when I think shawl, I think a really nice, like full coverage, like warms like your whole arms kind of as you like pull it around you. That's my personal feeling or thoughts or what I think of in my head when I think of a shawl. not something that is fairly small and, you know, only covers like this much of your shoulders. And that's what this pattern ended up knitting up as for me. Now, granted, I know that I am a very tight knitter. I usually end up having to go up on my needle size because I am such a tight knitter. So my gauge is always way smaller. However, this shawl barely seems to wrap around my body, and I am a very small human, like 115 pounds, 5'7", very petite human. And if it doesn't fit around me comfortably the way that I would want a shawl to fit around me, then personally, I don't think it should be listed as a shawl, because anyone larger than me, this thing is not going to go around them. Now, the plus side is that it is small enough to wrap it around my neck and wear it like that. So maybe that's the intent of the pattern, but that's not really what I saw from it. So I don't know. Do with that what you will. I will show you what it looks like on me, and keep in mind, I'm a very small, petite human. So if you want it to be bigger, what I would suggest is doing a 5th or maybe even a 6th stockinette section. And with the way that the pattern is written, it would be very easy to add a 5th or a 6th stockinette section. So it wouldn't be difficult to just keep going and not do the border after the 4th one, but do the same middle section and then do another stockinette section, then do another middle section, or the end, or however you want. But I would highly suggest, if you want it to actually wrap around you, to do something of the sort, because it just does seem to run small. However, the pattern was written very well. It was a very easy knit, a very fun knit. I really, really, really enjoyed it. It was different than the things that I've been knitting recently, so maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much. But I honestly think it would be stunning, and I wish I would have done this, to knit the like keyhole sections in one color and then knit your stockinette sections in a different color, so that these beautiful center sections are really amplified, and so that they stand out more. Because I feel like if you really knitted this in a dark color, you wouldn't get to fully appreciate the different sections of the shawl. Now, that's just me. That's what I would have done differently, especially if I would have known that I was going to have to use more yarn. However, I'm still happy with the end result. But if I would have known that it wasn't going to fit me the way that I would want a shawl to fit me, I would have just knitted the kerchief size and not run out of yarn, and had something a little bit less chunky around my neck. However, it ended up working, and I do really like it. But at first, when I took it off the needles, I was not stoked with it because of how small it actually was. And one thing I will say is it was super hard to get a feel for how big it was and the sizing of it when it was on the needles. It really wasn't until I took it off the needles that I could really be like, oh, this is not the size that I wanted it to be. So if you plan on knitting it, just keep those things in mind. Do with that what you will, but that is my Age of Brass and Steam kerchief. Oh, and I forgot, it is by Orange Flower Yarn. I ended up having to use 22 grams and 48 yards of my second color. So in total, I used 332 yards of yarn for this project. Now, the other project that I finished was the Bankhead hoodie in the baby size. Now, I knit this up for, I don't know yet actually who I knitted this up for. It's probably going to be for mine and my husband's brand new baby nephew. So not our baby, but my sister had a baby, and I actually knitted my husband a beanie in this color yarn. And I had enough left over, once again, another stash buster, and this was one of the recommended patterns for the amount of yarn that I had left over. Now, this pattern is by Susie Gourlay, and once again, this is a free pattern, and it was incredibly easy to knit up. It was written very well, and it took me no time, also because it was a baby size, let's be real. But I cast it on December 18th and finished it on December 26th. However, I was working on it very few and far between, so that was not consistent work. I think maybe in total 5 hours of work, which I don't know if that's a long time to make a baby hat or a short amount of time to make a baby hat. It doesn't matter. I'm not winning the world's fastest knitter competition ever, and I'm okay with that. But this is just the cutest hat, and I am pretty sure I am going to give it to my sister so that my husband and our nephew will have matching beanies. And they're not the same pattern. So the one that I made for my husband is the My Baker's hat, and this one is the Bankhead Beanie, but they look similar enough to where it's fine. They're made out of matching yarn, and that was the cute part. However, if my sister doesn't want it, I'm going to give it to a ministry out of Denver known as Knitting for Peace. And the awesome thing about them is that they will accept any fiber, art, craft, and quilting project that you are willing to donate. And then these donated items first go to underprivileged children and families in need inside of Colorado. But then sometimes they also go out of the country and go to other places. So not everything that's donated stays in Colorado, but a lot of it does. However, you can drop things off with them in person, or you can mail them in. And like I said, they'll accept anything. So I plan on making a lot of Stash Buster projects with them in mind, and making them even if I can't use them or if someone that I know can't use them, because that is a way that I can give back and help do God's work via my favorite hobby, and that makes me super happy. So I'm not 100% sure it's going to go to my nephew. It might end up there, but because they're matching hats, I think it's going to go to him. Now, as far as details for this pattern go, I used a 4.5 millimeter needle and another hand-dyed skein of yarn that I had from Nomad Yarns, which was the marshmallow worsted. So I got it and dyed it myself. And with that, I used 75 grams of it. And that was what I used for that one. So 0 complaints about this pattern, 0 things that I would change. I will say on the baby hat, the little ribbing details don't really come out super well, but I think once it's actually on, they will show through as well. However, I don't have a baby and my nephew lives all the way in Tennessee, so I'm gonna have to ship this to him. Therefore, I don't have anything to put this hat on, but it's cute nonetheless. And I think those are the only things that I finished this week. I've kind of hit a little bit of like a knitting slump this past week, but it's also been Christmas and I haven't had a whole lot of time to knit. So I think I'll get back into it this next week, this upcoming week. But I have hit a little bit of a slump, but that's okay. And honestly, I think the pattern that is causing me to slump is my Sophie Scarf. And the reason is it's kind of boring to knit. But it's not the boring that I can shut my brain off completely and, do something else while I'm knitting it. And the reason why I say that is because you have to track what row you're on. And I don't want to give too much of the pattern away because it is a paid pattern. But what I will say is you have to, every 8 rows do something else. So rows 1 through 7 are exactly identical, and then row 8 is a different row. And with the way that I knit, I have all my patterns on my iPad here, and I'll use my iPad pencil and mark what row I'm on and then erase the marks and keep going. So it's really hard for me to do other things while knitting this pattern because I always have to have my iPad pulled up on the pattern itself. Not that I don't know the pattern and not that I don't know how to do the pattern, but because every minute or so I'm checking off what row that I'm on to make sure that I don't miss that special row. So yeah, that one is just got me in a little bit of a slump. And I haven't been super excited to work on it. Not because I don't like it, but just because I think I'm a little bored of the pattern. And I don't know exactly why. I don't know if it's exactly the pattern and I am doing something wrong, which I don't think I am, but my tension is weird with this pattern. And my theory is that I'm using a really thin yarn for the first time ever. And so it shows my tension differences a lot easier than a thicker yarn. So I'm not exactly stoked with how my tension on my edging is for it. And I don't think you'll ever notice it, especially once it's on and tied around, your neck, that the tension is off. But the fact that it doesn't look like amazing also has me in a little bit of a funk on it, has me a little sad on it, but that is okay. And that's just part of knitting, and I just have to practice more because I have only been knitting for less than a year. So I can't beat myself up too much for having funky tension. So there's just a couple things that have made me not very excited to knit it. But I will say with the outfit that I wore today, it would have looked so perfect, and I was super bummed that I hadn't worked on it more this past week because I would have loved to have worn it to this outing with our church group that we did today. It would have been so stinking cute, and now I'm a little bit more excited to work on it because I now know exactly what jacket I'm going to wear it with. I just have to finish it. And I think those are all the updates that I have as far as finished items and works in progress. So this past week was Christmas, and I do have some acquisitions to talk about. And my absolute favorite one is this knitting stand. You can actually see it right here. So this thing, I absolutely love it. It was, I think, like $30 off of Amazon because me and my husband surprise each other with gifts, but we also let each other pick out gifts as well. So I knew I was getting it. It was something that I picked out for myself because this is not something my husband would ever know to have bought for me. And it is perfect for taking my knitting around the house, at least for smaller objects, so like my Sophie Scarf. But the awesome thing is that I can set my iPad up on the wooden beam and have a whole little section for my knitting so that everything kind of stays condensed and I don't have my iPad over here and my yarn ball rolling everywhere. It's all right here. And the fact that this little thing spins is awesome. So you thread your yarn through here and then click it up and it spins with as you pull the yarn. It is amazing. I absolutely love it. It is a $30 thing that I would never want to knit or crochet without ever again. Love it to pieces. Very excited for that. And then I also got a little project bag that has chickens on it. This was also just a super cheap Amazon purchase. It was, I think, it was like $7 or something. I had a little bit of spending money left for Christmas, so I picked that out as well. And it is this perfect little size to carry around small projects because I've never had a project bag before. I normally just throw them in my backpack or something. I was very excited for this. It has chickens on it. I love chickens immensely, to the point where we actually have a live feed for our chickens. So I will have it linked below, but it's called Fort Fluffy Butt. If you love chickens too, or want to watch some chickens live, they are there. Shameless plug, not gonna lie. But this is a cute little bag. It's holding my Sophie Scarf right now, and it was a fun little purchase. Also got from a friend a drop spindle, and I haven't tried it yet because I am very intimidated by it. I am not gonna lie. I'm so intimidated at the thought of using these drop spindle, but I will attempt it. I will attempt it by the next podcast episode. So sometime this week. But that friend also got me some fiber to spin with, and I'm excited to try it. It is never something that I've tried before, though I have always been interested in spinning. And honestly, if me and my husband didn't travel so much, I would absolutely have probably an Angora rabbit to collect fur from, to learn how to spin with. But we're just gone too much to justify pets that are more work than our chickens. But I am very excited because the thought of spinning my own yarn just feels like taking the craft to a new level. Now, as far as updates go, I think I have officially decided to start making Summit and Stitch candles and hand-dyed yarn. Fun fact about me is that I am also, in addition to, you know, being a knitter, crocheter, all the other crafts, one of my other crafts is candle making, and I have been making candles for almost a decade. And I go back and forth on candles because having a full-on product-based business is just not my thing. And the reason being is not that I don't like making products and I don't like shipping products and doing all of that. I love that. It's everything else that I don't love. I don't love the marketing. I don't love working like physical events like farmers markets. I don't enjoy trying to make an Instagram or a TikTok post every single day trying to promote a candle. I just don't love that part of it. I do not love the marketing aspect of running a small business. So my thought, however, was if I brand them as Summit and Stitch candles, I don't have to market them because I can come on here and, you know, say, hey, I have these, or, you know, just say I also make candles and they are on the shop. And I don't really have to go out of my way to solely market and sell candles because that's not the only thing that I'll be doing. But when that was the only thing that I was doing, I didn't enjoy it. So I had a fairly successful candle business that I did shut down because I just did not enjoy those other parts of it. But I think I have decided to dabble a little bit in it. So hopefully in the upcoming weeks, there will be candles on the blog, summitandstitch.com, so that I can share another facet of what I love to do with you all. Now, these candles will most likely be based off of my travels and adventures because that's a lot easier to make candles around versus knitting, right? Knitting doesn't really have a scent other than wet wool, and trust me, nobody wants that candle. So most likely they will be more nature, foresty, pine, floral scents, aquatic scents, things of that nature. And I will probably make a new one once a month, maybe 2 new ones a month, however it kind of ends up going. And if they're successful, then we'll make more, and if not, they'll just kind of be there. And then also the yarn. I have gone back and forth a lot because I did do a single line of hand-dyed yarn, and I enjoyed it, but I was also learning, so I didn't do anything with it. But the more that I knit, and especially the more that I knit with the yarns that I hand-dyed myself, the more I really want to keep trying to learn how to perfect the craft and how to share that. So I believe, as of right now, I still do plan on doing hand-dyed yarn skeins under the Summit and Stitch brand. However, for both the yarn and the candles, if I do it, everything will be made to order. So with that being said, as I release these things, just know that I'm not keeping inventory and that they may take a couple days to make and then ship, because of how much I love the freedom that me and my husband have. I really don't want to do anything that locks me to our home here and to where we can't travel and go do stuff, because that's also my absolute favorite thing to do. However, I can't live on the road 24/7, so I do have to have some things that I do here. So, and especially with the yarns, that will be something that your dye lot will be your dye lot. So they will be that small in terms of production. When we get to that point, I will highly suggest order as much as you need and maybe a little bit more, because the dye lots will literally be when they are produced for an order. So if you order and you end up needing another skein, it will be a different dye lot because they will all be made to order. So that's what I'm going to be working on this next week, is starting to get the things in place that I need to get up and running so that I can do those things. And then during the podcast episodes, I'll be able to show you what we have available for purchase in the store for this upcoming week. And what I'll do for when me and my husband are out of town is I'll just shut the store down, or if I get overwhelmed. So I think that's it as far as updates and other stuff goes. So if you made it to the end of this, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Let me know what you are knitting on, what you finished this week, and any cool acquisitions that you got for Christmas. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing so that I know and can continue making more content. And in the meantime, I'll see you next week. Bye, friends.